My name is Linda Schuyler Ford, and I am a Nest member, and I do a little bit of outreach every now and then. And this concert is a result of one of those outreach initiatives. Tonight we have six new members, six new Nest members, and we looked at people who had joined within the past 18 months. And I love that we are represented along the meridian, which we decided is north and south, and coast to coast. And with that in mind, I think we are due for a special land acknowledgement. We gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose ancestral homelands we gather, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their homes here today. From the Cahuela, Luisno, and Mi'kmaq of California to the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi of Michigan, the Mohegan, Nauset, and Narragansett people of New England, and the Waquasageek and Lenape people on whose lands my family inhabited in the Hudson Valley, and to the Appalachian and Seminole people who inhabited the land of Florida, where I am now. And this week, before Thanksgiving, we must pay a special tribute and acknowledgement to the Wampanoag and the Abenaki of Massachusetts. May we please live in peace and honor on their lands with a renewed sense of stewardship. Thank you, everybody. And now we're going to begin. I can't do that. Thank you, Bruce. Bruce is cool. Yes, I said Wampanoag, Denise. Didn't forget the Wampanoag. And so it is my pleasure to introduce our first storyteller, and that is Adair Heitman. Adair comes to us from Bridgeport, Connecticut, and she is an artist, a poet, an arts educator, in addition to being a storyteller. By the way, we're going to ask everybody to refrain from chatting while storytellers are sharing stories with you, and then you can share your appreciations after their performance, if you would, please. And that said, my friends, Adair Heitman.
Thank you. Am I unmuted and ready to rock and roll? Yes,
You're
awesome.
good.
It's 1970, and I am a teenager. I go to Stamford High School. It's a large suburban high school in Connecticut, just outside of New York City. High school peer pressure is hard enough, but I have the double whammy of being a minister's daughter. That means everything I do or say or wear is scrutinized by the church ladies. It's 1970. I'm hip, I'm fashionable. Of course, I wear short skirts. One Sunday after church, my minister father were sitting around our formal dining room table. My father glares at me and he says, Adair, the women of the church criticize your choice of attire. He goes on to tell me they told him, Adair, wearing a mini skirt to church sets a bad example. Being criticized for my fashionable self starts to chip away at my self-esteem. Then there's my smart mother who edits everything I do literally. I receive an award for a writing contest. She asked to see what I submitted. She returns to me her editorial comments written in a red pen for my improved grammar and my improved punctuation. Children learn what's modeled for them early on. I learned to edit myself. I learned to be my own worst critic. Somehow, art saved me. I'm a budding artist in high school, but I haven't had a chance yet to take an art class because I'm on the college track in high school. I'm finally ready to take my first art class. Walking into that large art room, oh, I smell turpentine. In process paintings with colorful abstract markings are leaning against walls and scattered across tabletops. I say to myself, I don't belong here. These people have been doing it a lot longer than I have. I master my courage and I stay. And my first art assignment is making a linoleum block print. I sketch my imaginative image of a regal goddess standing straight, her chin is uplifted, her face is in profile, her hands are poised, holding and playing a lute. I transfer that image onto the battleship gray linoleum block. The linoleum block is about an eighth of an inch thick, 9 inches wide, 15 inches tall. Then I learn how to use hand tools to carve my image into the hard plastic. I have to carve the image that will become the matrix, the master that I'll print from. Cupping the ball-shaped gouging tool in the palm of my hand, I push the sharp blade away from my body to incise my image. It would have been a lot easier if my image consisted of straight lines. However, my entire sketch has curvy shapes and sinuous lines. It's hard learning how to use this new carving tool and pushing it in a direction that's the opposite of how I draw. But after time, I get it right. Carving my regal goddess with her curly flowing hair and her billowy fabric gown takes weeks and weeks. I love the artistic challenge and I am very happy with the results. Now it's time to actually start printing. I smell the thick, oily smell of the printmaking inks, and they sound like thick Vaseline. So I roll pink ink onto my linoleum block. I then lay a piece of cream colored paper on top. Gently, I rub and burnish the back of the paper, transferring the wet ink onto the dry paper. I slowly peel off the pink image. I lay it flat. I let it dry for a week. The next art class comes and I learn about registration. In printmaking, when you're printing more than one color on top of another on the same piece of paper, you have to align everything perfectly to get the registration right. I choose a dark blue ink. I roll the dark blue ink onto my linoleum block. I take my dry pink image, I lay it on top. I rub, I burnish, I steadily peel off the corner, and I now have a two-color print. And then I have this bright idea to print wet on wet. Hearing the viscous sound of the white ink makes me swoon. Oh, I breathe in, I breathe out. I roll the ink on my linoleum block. I place my image on top. I gently burnish it. I peel it off ever so steadily. And when I look at my three-color print, I gasp. I don't think it's good enough. The edges aren't crisp like I think they're supposed to be. And a little voice inside me says, Adair, this isn't good enough. And I walk over to the other side of the art room and I throw away my print in the large industrial sized trash bin and I leave the art room. My art teacher's name is Miss Betty Burnett. Miss Betty Burnett has blonde chin length hair. Every day to school, she wears a tailored suit, tailored jacket, straight skirt, and sensible shoes. Miss Burnett has been a fly on the wall the whole semester, watching me work. Unbeknownst to me, Miss Burnett retrieves my print out of the trash bin. Unbeknownst to me, Miss Burnett submits it to a statewide scholastic art contest, and I win an award. My uh-oh moment isn't only throwing away my hard-earned artistic expression. My uh-oh moment is for years afterwards thinking, I'm not okay. I'm not good enough. Now, when I am older and wiser, and I see my lute player, my first linoleum block print, I realize, damn, that's good. There's a song made famous during the civil rights movement. It's called This Little Light of Mine. It's a fitting ending to this story and my continuing journey to recover from perfectionism. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you.
Adair, thank you. Thank you. And thank you. So many of us, almost all of us except maybe Simon, have really struggled with that sense of unworthiness at some time during our lives. And for you to make art out of a message of encouragement is a wonderful gift. So thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. And the praise is coming in. And so I will speak slowly while I tell you that our next storyteller is Jesri Marcano Courtney. Jesri comes to us from New Haven, Connecticut, has been with Nest for what, 2 years? Year and a half?
About, yeah.
Yeah. We kind of stretched the eligibility because, there was that COVID thing. Jesri came out of the chute and right away began volunteering on the board. And at the end of the year, is that right? In January, she officially becomes Nest's new president. So we are grateful that she values this organization and is bringing considerable skill to bear in helping us grow and connect further. So thank you. Jesri is going to share a personal story called The Blasphemer.
Are we ready to go? All right, here we
Yeah.
are. Okay. Of all of the things that my parents told me in their time being educated in Catholic school, one thing has always stuck with me, and that's that nuns can be scarier than God himself. And so when my parents decided that I was to be educated at St. Brendan School, they offered me cautious advice. Question everything within reason. And so, with the 2 years that I have spent already at St. Brendan School, it turns out my parents are correct. The nuns are indeed scary. And it would seem that the smaller they are in stature, the meaner they are when it comes to the way that they control the children and the school. Well, one of the scariest nuns at St. Brendan School is Sister Natalina. And Sister Natalina wears round rim frame glasses that have tinted lenses, dark tinted lenses. And I really think that these tinted lenses have a radar imprinted on them because she seems to naturally know when a child is getting into mischief. And then she swoops in like a hawk on prey. Afterward, the poor kid who's been caught either gripped by the ear or by the collar would join sister in cleaning out the scuffs left in the lovingly waxed hallways, the floors of the school hallway. And I have to admit that this is one of my guilty pleasures because I get to miss algebra. Sister Natalina also has a nickname for children who do not subscribe to her, well, God's will, and that's basketball head. And a basketball head is a child with nothing but air in between their ears. But it's not all bad news with Sister Natalina. She does have her tender spots. Every week on Wednesday, she opens the broom closet and uses that as the candy store for the school. And for $1, she will sell you overstock school fundraiser Kit Kat bars. But the scariest thing about Sister Natalina that I can tell you about is that she has this need to record everything that we do. She literally walks around the school with an Action News grade camera, recording class time and recess time and lunchtime and mass time. Well, we are about 2 months away from school being let out for the summer, and we're all restless. But the most restless of us are the 8th graders because they're beyond ready to graduate. And let me tell you something about the class of 1996. They are quite a mischievous bunch because they not only plan, but also successfully execute a prank on Sister Natalina. This morning, I walk into school. I'm in the main corridor and notice that sister is pacing up and down the hallways in a very concerned fashion. And she only stops to open the doors of each of the classrooms, have a look inside, close the door, and then move on to the next classroom. Well, most of the kids who have come into school with me are all busy with the business of getting ready for the school day, but I am a nosy child, so I hang back and suss out the vibe. Well, a couple of my 7th grade friends and then a couple of the 8th grade students flank me. And one of the 8th grade students leans into my ear and whispers loudly, "We stole sister's camera." I am speechless, but deeply satisfied because I hate that camera. Well, later on in the day, my 7th grade class gets ready for Italian lessons with none other Sister Natalina. But when she walks into our classroom, instead of giving us our Italian lessons, she settles into a lecture about stealing. Strange. She also admits to us that she is only going to be giving this lecture to our class. And now this gets my spidey senses tingling because I had received the tea earlier on this morning. But as sister continues, we become informed of being suspended, probably expelled, but definitely going to have to suffer eternal damnation for stealing sister's camera, lying to her and God. Sister wears us down with her preaching, and she opens the floor for questions and confessions. So I raise my hand. I ask, "Sister, are you sure you don't want to speak with any of the other classes in the school? I mean, wouldn't the 8th graders and all of the classes below us, it would be nice to have us all help you find your camera, right?" Sister assures me and the rest of my classmates that she has come to the room for the correct answers. And then she commands us to stand by our desks and open them so that she can inspect them, as if we could hide an Action News grade camera in a folding desk. But I digress. I have to quickly pivot now. I raise my hand again. Sister, how do you know that we stole your camera? One by one, each of my classmates nod and start to comment in agreement. This encourages me to ask another question. And sister, if you're wrong, will you apologize to us? Suddenly, the dark tinted lenses on sister's glasses go completely black. Blasphemer! She yells out to my class. Fall to your knees and pray. You must pray for forgiveness for lying to sister and for forgiveness to lying to God. I watch my classmates fall to their knees to pray. One of my classmates turns and looks at me diagonally from the front of the classroom and says, "Thanks a lot, basketball head." Later on that afternoon, the 8th graders relented and admitted to sister that they were really the ones who had pulled the prank and had stolen her camera. They also returned it to her completely unharmed. The next day, however, my class got no kind of apology. However, when I am walking down the school hallways and I see sister coming up in the opposite direction, she offers me a subtle nod. Is it because she is deeply impressed that I was able to stand up for me and my classmates? No. However, I do think she realizes that there might be just something more than air in between my ears. Thank you.
Jasri, you have survived Catholic school. Well done. Well done. And you know, I've heard you tell some very heartfelt, serious stories, but good to see the feisty side of you. Yeah. Humor is the first sign of survival, right? Well done. And so feel free to share your compliments and yippies in the chat as we slowly move along. Next up are John Petrick and Rebecca Petrick. Katie's working her magic. Where'd they go? Here they are. John and Rebecca spend their time between California and Maine. There are grandchildren at one end or the other. I get that. That's why I'm a Meridian. John has been a storyteller for quite some time and is the New Nest member. He performs with Rebecca, and I've had the pleasure of hearing her musical accompaniment, and it is delightful. John has decided to share his version of The Reluctant Dragon, and Rebecca is going to provide some musical accompaniment here. So John and Rebecca Petrick, take it away.
Thank you. And as you said, this is The Reluctant Dragon by Kenneth Grahame, a very loose adaptation, and accompanied or interspersed with some traditional fiddle music. Long ago, along the rugged coast of Maine, lived a poor farmer and his wife, and they had a boy, but the boy was different. You see, the boy cared little for farming like his parents or chasing snakes and squirrels like the other boys. This boy loved only to read, and sometimes he would get so absorbed in his reading he would forget to do his chores. But his parents did not beat him because they knew some people need to know the ways of the village, but some people need to know more. All the best pasture land near the village had long ago been taken by the wealthy farmers, so the poor farmer had to drive his cow and sheep far into the hills to find grazing. One evening he came home all afluster. "It's a disaster, I tell you! I was hearing noises and the sheep were nervous, and I come to the top of the highest hill, and there's a dragon! There's a dragon in the jockey cable! What will we do? He will kill us all!" "Now, father," said the boy, "calm down. I know much about dragons. They are in many books. Let me talk to him." And the parents agreed, and they were very proud that they had raised such a wise and brave son. The next morning, the boy hiked to the top of the highest hill. The view from there was magnificent. The trees, the brooks, the meadows sloping down toward the village. Beyond that, some smaller hills, and beyond that, the blue of the ocean. And at the top slept a blue-green dragon, as big as 20 oxen, with claws as long as knives. "Mr. Dragon, what do you want?" I just want to talk to you." "You won't throw stones at me or poke me with sharp sticks like those other boys?" "Oh, no. I know that dragons are very sensitive and intelligent." The dragon looked at the boy with new respect. "Boy, it sure is pretty up here. Do you plan to stay long?" "Oh, I don't know. I don't need much. I don't rampage or chase knights or anything. I mostly just think." "Well, what do you think about?" "Well, I write stories and poems, just for fun, you know." "Well, me too. But nobody else in the village does that." And thereafter, each day, the boy would hike to the top of the highest hill, and the dragon would share his stories of long ago when many dragons roamed the land. And the boy would recite his poems and verses too. But one day, the boy had a different message. "You know, you're not going to be able to stay here. Most people think that dragons are the enemy of the human race. Soon the people of the village will come with weapons and drive you out." "But you know I wouldn't hurt anyone. I was hoping I could stay." But the news of the dragon soon spread, as there are no secrets in a small town. And even though the dragon had not even harmed a chicken, tales of his cruelty and depravity spread far and wide. Why, to hear the men down at the village tavern each night, you would think that it was only their bravery that kept all the women, children, and livestock from being devoured. But in the morning, it was only the brave boy that went to the top of the highest hill. But one day, the village was abuzz with excitement. The news of the dragon had spread all the way to England, and St. George was coming to slay the dragon. The people stood along the road cheering as St. George rode in on his tall white horse. The next morning, the boy found St. George eating his breakfast. "St. George, this dragon wouldn't hurt anyone." "Well, by Jove, son, I think I know a lot about dragons, and they aren't always truthful." "But this one is. You must meet him." And so the boy and St. George hiked up to the top of the highest hill. And St. George did in fact find that the dragon was kind and peaceful. "Oh, by Jove, now what am I going to do? I told the people of the village I would slay a dragon. I have a reputation to uphold. Don't you at least have some damsels in distress? I like rescuing fair maidens." "Wait," said the boy, "I have an idea." And the three of them whispered together. When St. George returned to the village, news soon spread that he would slay the dragon the next day. The next morning found the people of the village streaming up the hill with their picnic baskets full of food and wine. They spread their blankets a safe distance from the cave and waited for the entertainment. At around noon, they saw St. George coming up on his horse, his silver armor and sword glowing in the sun. Hearing the clink of the armor, the dragon jumped from the cave, blowing smoke and fire, cracking his tail like a whip, getting dangerously close to the picnickers. St. George charged! The dragon easily deflected the first two passes, but on the third pass, St. George's lance hit the dragon squarely, and the dragon went down. The people cheered, crying. The boy ran to the dragon, only to see the dragon look up and wink at him. The boy's plan had worked. St. George had hit the dragon in exactly the spot where his scales were so thick to be impenetrable. St. George stood over the dragon in triumph. As the dragon began to stir, someone yelled, "Off with his head!" "Not yet," said St. George. And St. George and the boy led the defeated dragon down into the village where a great celebration was planned. After much food and drink, St. George got up. "People of the village, on the way down the hill, the dragon told me that if he is allowed to live at the top of the highest hill, that he will protect this village from all intruders and all other dragons forever. I have known many dragons, and I find this one to be trustworthy. The dragon shall live." The crowd was stunned. There were even a few boos. But after a couple more rounds, they were soon saying, "Hail to the dragon!" The dragon rose to speak. "I want to thank St. George and the people of the village and then, like any underappreciated storyteller that had a captive audience, he began to tell his stories. But alas, all good things must come to an end. And when the keg was empty, the villagers filed out one by one. And soon it was only the boy and the dragon. And the boy had promised the dragon he would take him up the hill because the dragon was afraid of the dark. But the boy was very young, and it was very late, and they'd gone only a short way when the boy lay down by the side of the road and the dragon lay next to him. And it was there that St. George found them in the morning. He roused them, and the three of them together, arm in arm, walked up the highest hill.
Tell me that's not a fun household. So, John, can you unmute yourself, please, for a moment and tell me what brought you to Nest? How did you find Nest?
Well, okay, I've got a friend who is a friend of Bruce Marcus's who has been at Story Space for a few times. And then our daughter, who lives in New Hampshire, had a baby last March. So when we came to visit the new baby, we went to Portsmouth, or I went to Portsmouth to the Nest convention. So that's how I ended up joining Nest. So I think it was $55 more if you were a non-member, but it was only $45 to join or something like that. So I joined.
So talented and capable of doing math. Good job. And we're delighted to have you with us. And like I said, that's got to be one fun household. So where are you right now?
We're actually in Portland, Oregon, visiting Rebecca's mother.
Okay.
And we have 2 grandkids here with us, so it's pretty nice.
Yeah, definitely. Wonderful. Well, we're delighted that you both were able to share tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, next up, my friends, and I neglected to chat a little bit with Adair and Jesri, so we're going to do that a little bit later. Next up is Liza Newell. Liza Newell grew up in the Shenandoah Valley. Are we all singing that now? Yeah. And comes from a long line of storytellers and has a genuine and deep love of folk tales. And so I'm delighted that she has joined Nest as part of our community. And I'm delighted that we're going to hear her tonight tell Truth in Story. Miss Liza.
Thank you, Linda. Once upon a time, there was an old woman. There's always an old woman. It was this old woman's destiny to walk the earth for all of eternity. The shoes that she wore were thin in the soles. She wore a threadbare traveling cloak over her bony shoulders. Her body was gnarled and twisted as though bent by the hands of time itself. This old woman would walk from village to village, from town to town, and she noticed that when she passed through the main streets, people would see her coming and they would avert their eyes. They would turn their backs and busy their hands as if preoccupied with something else. When night would fall, the old woman would go from home to home, knocking on doors and asking for a place to stay. Her request was always the same. "Please," she would say, "I am a weary traveler. I'm looking for a place to rest and a bite to eat. Can I share your hearth tonight?" And whether it was true or not, the people always gave her the same reply. "I'm sorry," they would say, "we have no room for you here." And they would close the door. On one afternoon, the old woman was walking through yet another town, and she noticed that coming from up the street was the sound of great merriment. And she looked, and off in the distance, she could see a young man riding into town on horseback. He rode a large, healthy horse. He wore a deep blue velvet traveling cloak. His eyes were gentle and kind, and his smile was generous, and people poured from their homes into the streets to come and greet him. They clamored over one another to shake his hand and offer him food and mead and a place to stay. The old woman watched from a distance. And when the crowd had cleared and it was just the young man on horseback, she approached him. "Who are you?" she asked. The young man just smiled. "Why, you must be a king or a knight. People are so eager to receive you. Who are you?" The young man smiled again. "I'm Story." "Ah," said the old woman, "of course. You have been welcome in the hearts and homes of people for as long as we've lived." The young man nodded. "And who are you?" he asked. "I," said the old woman, "I'm Truth." "Ah," said the young man, "I imagine the welcome you receive is quite different from the welcome I receive." "Yes," said the old woman, "people aren't always eager to have me in their homes. I'm hard to look at." It occurred to that young man in this moment that this was a connection he didn't want to lose. And so he said, I know this sounds crazy, but I was wondering if you might want to travel with me. We could go together from village to village." But the old woman, she just shook her head. "No, I'm afraid that won't work. You see, when people see me with you, they will become fearful, and we both will be turned away." "All right," thought the young man. Well, what about this? Do you think you could make yourself smaller?" "No," said the old woman. "All right, then do you think you could make yourself invisible? What about that?" "No, I arrive exactly as I am." And the young man thought for a moment. And then he offered this. I ride this beautiful horse, and I have a long traveling cloak. If you're willing, you can ride with me on the back of my horse, and I can cover you in my cloak, and this way we can go together." And the old woman thought for a moment, and she smiled and nodded and extended her hand. And that's when the hand of Story reached down to grab the hand of Truth, and gently he pulled her onto the back of his horse and covered her in his traveling cloak. And the two of them, they've been traveling like that ever since. And that's why, even to this day, wherever Story goes, it brings truth with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love personal stories, but it's wonderful to hear somebody bring folktales to us. We're at the risk of those being lost, and so I'm absolutely delighted. That was beautiful crafting, and I'm so glad that you are part of our family.
Thank you.
What brought you to Nest?
I have just started working on sharing stories and came across Nest as just a network of support and other tellers on the East Coast. I live in Virginia, and y'all have just been so generous. I love being part of the email threads, and I've asked for story recommendations and immediately have received more information than I ever would have imagined. So I'm really enjoying my time as a member.
Wonderful. And do you have any events coming up soon?
The next one that I have officially on the books, I'll be telling with the Grapevine in DC in March.
Great. And that's not virtual, right? That's only live?
They've actually started doing hybrid. I don't know if that's their plan in 2025, but since COVID,
Okay.
they had an in-person and virtual component. So
Okay.
I imagine you can check it out over Zoom if you're
Great to
not.
know. So Grapevine, everybody. Liza, thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda.
All righty, my friends. We have a few minutes, so Adair, would you unmute and tell us a little bit about what you have coming up, what you've been doing?
Hey, absolutely. I just finished my poet in residence stint in local schools, under-resourced schools in Connecticut. And my next storytelling event is March 16, 2025. There's a organization called Gather the Women Global Metrics Winter Tales. So I will be one of 6 storytellers over a 6-week period. It'll be Sunday afternoons, 2 o'clock Pacific time, 5 o'clock Eastern time. Women from all across the world, Uruguay, Argentina, USA, Germany. It's gonna be real cool. You can go on my website, adairheitman.com, and there's info for it, or Gather the Women Global Matrix. So that's
Okay,
the one that comes up.
wonderful. Maybe all of the storytellers can put either your website or your contact information in the chat so that other members can reach out to you. And Jesri, thank you, Adair.
Yeah.
Jesri Marcano, Courtney. So what's our future president got to say?
Wow. Okay. Really nice to be put on the spot there, Linda.
Don't know anything.
I am actually pretty excited for for next year. We are planning quite a few wonderful things, including Sharing the Fire 2025, which has a new home for the next 2 years, 3 years in Glens Falls, New York. We'll be at the Queensbury Hotel, and Katie,
Yeah.
step in,
That's
help
it.
us.
That's it. Right.
So we will be there for the next few years. What else do we have coming up? We are in search of very enthusiastic and very much interested folk to join the board of directors. And not only just the board of directors, we also have committees where anybody who is interested can go ahead and lend a hand, a voice, any skill you have, we will take it on and it will be of great support to the entire organization. The outreach committee is looking for members. The Social Justice Committee is looking for members. And so please get in contact with us. Katie's email address, it's neststorytelling@gmail. That would be, she's the best person to give you information to get you to where you need to go, especially if you are joining us and you are a prospective member and you're looking at joining. She will lead you to the correct places where you can join, find out information about sharing the fire, and find out information about our board and our wonderful committees.
See, I knew you had two tons of things to say. Now, what about you personally? Do you have any events coming up that you want us to be aware of?
Ah, yes, events. I am right now. The event is sharing the fire. A lot of planning for that. I would also like to plug Ubuntu Storytellers. That is the main troupe that I tell stories with, along with Story City, which will make its return to the Buttonwood Tree. I want to say in December or January of 2025. So as events come up, that information will be made public and y'all will know where to find me. But until then, I'm gonna be sat behind my desk, being of support to all of you.
Thank you, thank
Thank you.
you, thank you. All right, my friends, next up, there's a lot going on. I feel like I need a nap now. Next up is Mindy Donner, who comes to us from California. I love that our family footprint is so wide now. Mindy comes to us from California. She is a puppeteer and storyteller from San Diego. Is that right? San Diego? Okay. And she is going to share with us Daughter of the King Ron. So Mindy, tell us your story.
Thank you. This story is after Sorcha Nish Lawis. There are many islands in the north of Scotland, some of which are inhabited only by the Selkies, the seal people, who can transform into humans and back again at will. And there are other islands that have inhabitants that are human, two-leggeds, and sheep, and boast two towns. And on one of these islands, there were a laird and a lady who lived high on a hill in a grand castle. And of course, they had a scion named Ian of marriageable age. And all the young women of the town fancied him. But Ian was not interested, although he was aware that he was being called on to produce an offspring sometime and by marriage. So to that end, he wrote down the names of all the least odious young ladies that he knew and tore them into strips, put them in a container, and went out on his boat into the sea, for that is where he was calm. And then he began to look at the names and to consider. Ah, what was I thinking? And so forth. He wasn't paying attention, and a squall came up, and then he was facing a sheer cliff. And he heard a voice as if from heaven calling from above, "Man, turn that boat around or you'll be smashed to bits." And without scarce taking his eyes off that heavenly voice, he turned his boat and clambered up the backside of the island. And there he met the loveliest lass he had ever laid eyes on. Oh, they talked themselves up and down. They were so smitten with one and the other. And he asked her, "What's your name?" "Ah, Fiona." "Ian." "And where's your father?" "Oh, he's not here." But all the time he sees, with her eyes, she's tracking a great silver gleam out on the horizon. He won't be back until tomorrow or maybe next week. Ian says that he'll be back as soon as possible. And so he returned, and there they were. And he's asking about her father again when the whole island shook and the gnarled trees bent. And up the backside of the island clambered a Goliath of a man to his David. And I'll tell you, he was not slinging any stones. Oh, what might you be doing here? You're trespassing. Actually, I was invited. By whom and what for? I was invited by Fiona, your daughter. You were you? And what for? Well, I'd like to ask for her hand in marriage. Well, I should have to ask her about this. I find that very refreshing in a folktale. And Fiona came and stood by Ian. Well, if you're serious, Ian, you'll bring a dress for Fiona the next time you come, exactly at this time, 1 week from now. She can take no thing from this world back to your world. And once in your world, she can take no thing back. Ian says, oh yes, and he and Fiona touch hands. He comes back the next week with a dress spun of the finest gossamer silk. It had gold ruching at the neckline, and it was an aquamarine blue to echo the shallows of the sea that merged into the deepest, deepest green of the depths of the ocean. He climbed up and he gave it to her. She stepped in and put it on. Oh, I've never had anything like this before. And then, as before, the island shook and the trees bent, and this Goliath of a man rose up from the back of the island. You gotta promise one thing, you two. You have to promise, Ian, that if you ever raise your voice to my dear Fiona, she will be bidden to return to me. They started to laugh. Ian could not imagine raising his voice in anger to dear Fiona, and neither could Fiona. And so he put Fiona's left hand outstretched, and then Ian's hand joined it. They were pronounced a married couple. And then, with scarce a glance back, the King Ron clambered back down the island. Fiona and Ian went down, and then at the boat he noticed she didn't have any shoes. He had forgotten. Oh, no matter. And she climbed into the boat, and when they arrived at his island and she got out, everyone saw, the great crowd had gathered, that she had no shoes. And oh, the story went around that she was a country lass that Ian had met on his travels, and they loved her all the more for it. There was a grand coach, and it took them to the castle. For a few years, she went everywhere with Ian. As if a girl at her first time in Disneyland. And then, after a few years, a bairn lay in the nursery in a cradle. And she began to say to Ian, I can't come out at night, Ian. The bairn needs me, but be patient. It won't be too long. But that is exactly what Ian lacked, patience. And he began to go out at night alone with his friends. And Fiona stayed in the nursery with the bairn and waited up for him. And on this particular night, there was inclement weather. And of course, there was no social media, not even a telegraph to say he wasn't coming home. And she waited. And in the morning, he came up the stairs and Fiona! And the babe started to cry. Can't you stop that babe from crying? The baby stopped crying. Well, Ian wanted to say, I'm sorry, but his pride wouldn't let him. And he stomped back down the stairs. And Fiona, she rocked her babe and she kissed him last on his rosebud mouth and laid him into the cradle. The next morn, when Ian felt contrite, he went up the stairs. Fiona, she was not there. He went down into the kitchen. She hadn't been seen for breakfast. He went into the livery stable and her horse was not there. He knew. He walked. No, he ran. No, he stumbled down the rock-strewn path to the sea. And there at the cliff, her clothes were laid neatly, one atop the other. And he looked out to the sea and there was a faint, small gleam. Fiona! It was too late. Ian went back into the castle and up to the nursery to be with the bairn. And he was with that boy for the next 20 years and exhibited much patience. He became a changed man. And on the son's 21st birthday, Ian held a great feast and he gave his keys to the castle and all the properties to his son. But his son said, no, father, it is not yet my time. And in the morning, the son looked for Ian. Ian was nowhere to be seen. The son knew. He walked, he ran, no, he stumbled down the rock-strewn path to the sea. And he saw Ian's things piled neatly, one atop the other. And he looked out to sea, and there was the faint outline on the horizon of a small boat. Now, some people say that Ian's boat capsized with him as planks came back over the years. Other people say he went to the Western Isles to be with the saints whom he had come to resemble. But the fisher folk say that he went to the island of the King Ron, where he was reunited with Fiona because of the love they still had for one and the other. And he was granted the privilege of becoming a Selkie himself. As for the son, he became a fine and just laird, whose motto it was, be kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you. Am I still muted? It's saying I'm muted. I'm not muted. Can you hear me say thank you? Thank you. That was lovely. That was lovely. Um, I know you're a puppeteer also. So where does storytelling, how did storytelling enter your life?
Storytelling and puppetry entered my life at the same moment when I was involved in a Waldorf school teacher training, and they entered my life simultaneously, and I bit.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I
Yes.
did.
And what do you have coming up, Mindy?
Coming up is our annual festival, Storytellers of San Diego. It's held at the Coronado Public Library. It's not hybrid, it's in person, and sometimes folks come down from LA. And it is a grand festival. It's held in one day, so it's compressed, and there's something for everyone. And if you want to come out this way, I always have a room, like Bruce Marcus always has a room, and you can stay.
Lovely. So we all have an invitation, guys. That's
Yes.
lovely. Thank you, Mindy, so much. I'm delighted that you're part of the family.
Thanks so much.
Now, my friends, we have one more storyteller. Patty Smith is next. And Patty Smith comes from Ann Arbor, Michigan. She is a special ed teacher, which you can imagine is a full-time job, but she also is an attorney and a tour guide, and she knows a thing or two about beer. So we'll have to ask her about that a little later, but right now her story is titled Counting the Dots on the Ceiling.
Thank you, Linda. It's a bright, sunny day in Adrian College, Adrian, Michigan, 1992. I'm on the phone with my mother. So, Mom, I have the appointment. It's tomorrow. Oh, honey, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're doing this. Now I don't have to worry about you getting pregnant. See, I have my first college boyfriend and we're having sex. And I've always known the worst thing in the world for my mother would be me getting pregnant. I know, Mom, but I'm kind of worried because I don't really, oh, honey, you know what? Every woman has to go through this. You got to get the pill. You got to do this. It's going to hurt like hell, but just look at the ceiling and count the dots, get through it. The next day, I find myself in a doctor's office on a cot, naked from the waist down, with a blanket, which is actually kind of just paper, covering my legs. I look around, typical office, the cotton ball jar, the cabinets, the sink, and there's a metal tray. And there's things on that tray. I don't know what they are. One of the things looks like this super long, like Q-tip thing, and the other thing looks like the miniature version of like a toilet brush. And those other things, oh God, they look metal, they're metal and they look hard and they look cold. And oh my God, is that going to be in me in a few? But I can't finish the thought because the door opens and the doctor and the nurse come in. The nurse is about my mom's age. The doctor, a man, is a little bit younger. He has kind of long red hair. He pulls back in a ponytail, even though he's kind of balding on top. They introduce themselves. I introduce myself. The nurse pats the end of the table and says, "All right, honey, scooch down." Okay. I scooch down. I look up at the ceiling, count the dots. My mom said, count the dots and it'd be over in a second. So I look at those dots. The doctor between my legs switches a bright light on. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh my God. He's got gloves. He's touching down there. I don't like it. And I sit up. Honey, the nurse says, you need to lay down and scooch down. Could I just sit up maybe? Because I don't like that. No, honey, you can't. You gotta lay back. Okay, count the dots. Okay. Doctor, gloved hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh God, I said, okay, I'm only here to get the pill. I just need to get the pill. Can I just need the pill. I just need the pill. The nurse again. Honey, you got to go. It'll take a minute. The doctor says we have to get a move on. Look, if you're having sex, you can do this. Oh, okay, he's right. He's right. I lay back. Okay. I'm going to count the dots on the ceiling. 1, 2, oh God, 3, 4, 5. It's so, no, so, oh, I can't. And I kick. I don't kick at the doctor. I don't hit him, but I kick at him. And that's enough for the red hair ponytail doctor. He pulls the gloves off, walks out of the room, and I'm sitting there heaving. I'm as if I've been jogging. And I'm crying. And the nurse says, honey, you're going to have to do this, but I can give you a month's prescription for the birth control pill, but you've got to come back in a month. Okay. Could you, maybe next time, could you use lubrication down there? Oh, no, honey, not possible, sweetheart. She pats my knee. Go ahead and get dressed. We'll check you out. I go and check out, and hey, I got my pills. I'm good for a month. Call my mom. Okay, I got them. Oh, how'd it go? Did you count the dots like I told? Well, actually, Mom, I couldn't actually go through with it. It was too much. And that sigh, I heard that sigh my entire life. I know what's coming. Can't you just be normal? Can't you just do this? Every woman has to go through this. You have to do this. Lay back and count the goddamn dots. I don't go back there the next month. I go to another clinic in Adrian, and it's the same thing. I don't kick, but I can't do it. I get another month's prescription though. I got my pills. And then it's summer and the boyfriend and I break up, so I'm not having sex anyway. And then college goes on, and the next year I hook up with someone else, and I got to do this. I got to do this. I'm going to go home to my home clinic. I have a female nurse practitioner. She comes in. My mom takes me to the appointment. My mom's in the waiting room. The nurse comes in, sees my sorority letters. Oh, you're a Chi. I'm a Chi. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. We have a bond. This is going to work. I'm going to do this. And it's the same thing. And I'm naked with the thing over me, and she's between my legs, and she actually says, just relax, count the dots on the ceiling. Okay, that's the second person who said that now. I can do this, but I can't. It's the same thing. And as I pull away and I'm shaking, and she looks at me from between my legs and she says, what happened to you? Oh, I tried to go last year and I tried twice, and it was no, she says, what happened to you? And I don't remember how, but somehow my mother's in there, and the nurse practitioner looks at her and says, did you leave her alone with a grandpa or an uncle who might have hurt her? And now it dawns on me what she's saying. And I'm like, oh, no. My mom is furious because this woman has just impugned the memory of my dead grandfather and my live father, both of who are wonderful men who have never hurt me in any way. And we're both, and my mom's furious, and I'm telling her, no. And the nurse practitioner just shakes her head and says, well, I can give you a script, but you got to get counseling. Counseling therapy is not a thing in my family. They look down, they make fun of people who get therapy, but I go. And I go to this woman, and it's the same thing as a nurse practitioner. She's looking for some trauma that just isn't there. For God's sakes, I just can't go through the fucking exam. Give me the goddamn pills. And then life just goes on and happens. And I go through college, and I go through law school, and I'm in my 20s and living with condoms and fear. And then I meet the man who'd become my first husband. And I'm like, I got to do this. I have to do this. And I go to a doctor, and it's the same thing. But this time she says to me, well, in this kind of case, I can't do it. You're not letting me do it, but we can do it under anesthesia. I was like, what? Oh my God, yes. And she does it under anesthesia, clean bill of health, nothing going on. And I got my pills. And the next year, under anesthesia again, and I got my pills. And I've always known I didn't want kids. So now I'm in my 30s, and I find a doctor at the U of M hospital, and she says, yeah, I'll tie your tubes for you. Can you do the exam while I'm under? Sure. And they do now my tubes are tied. I don't need my pills anymore. But life goes on. I change careers. I change husbands. I move to another house in Ann Arbor, and I realize I have a really wonderful life, blessed beyond what I ever could have imagined. And I start thinking, as I get into my late 30s and my early 40s, I want to make sure I'm okay. See, I did some genealogy, and great grandma Siegel died of ovarian cancer. My mom had always been real hush hush women's issues, you know. And I know it's not, I'm too far away from her, God rest her soul. I'm too far away from her. It's not, but I don't know. It's in my family. I got to do this. And I find a place a mile from my house called Women's Safe Health. Now, that sounds like a good, you know, what I'm looking for. And I go and I'm ready for it. And Dr. Shadigian comes in and she says, I'm Dr. Elizabeth. That's nice. I said, okay, just so you know, there's no trauma. I know you think that I've been molested, and no, I've never been domestically violenced. I've never been assaulted, nothing like that. It's just this exam. I just can't get through this exam. And she kind of looks at me and kindly, and she sits down and says, okay, why would you think I would think that? And I said, well, everyone thinks that, but because every woman can go through this exam, just count the dots. Every woman goes through it. She takes her and she says, Patty, not every woman can go through this. It doesn't mean you have trauma. It means it's a rough exam and some people need some extra help. No one has ever said this. So I look at her. She looks at me and says, Patty, what would help you get through this exam? No one's ever asked me that. I got to think. And I remember that first time with the red-haired doctor, and I say, you know it's not possible, but I don't like the laying back. It feels weird. And I'd like to sit up, and I think, but I know that's not. And she's like, Patty, that's possible. And she shows the cot. She's like, you can totally sit up at like almost a 90-degree angle. What else? Well, I know this isn't possible, but like if there could just be lubrication because it's so dry, but I know, Patty, she says, it's totally possible. It's not going to affect the pap smear at all. Why couldn't you use lube? But they always told me, well, they were wrong. They weren't telling you the whole thing. Of course I can use lubrication. What else? Well, now that you mention it, I don't, it's the speculum. It's metal, it's hard, it's awful. She says, I know. That's why I have multiple sizes. I have plastic. I heat it up, warm it up, put warm gel on it, and we can do that. What else? I don't know. I think that might be it. And she says, do you want to try? You don't have to. You can try another day. And I'm like, well, I'm here. My husband's out. Ken is out in the, might as well. And she says, do you want Ken to come back? And I'm like, yeah. And she gives me this warm, soft, fluffy robe. And Ken comes back and I sit on that table and there's stirrups, but not really. I mean, they're really, really comfortable. And Ken, I grab his hand and I'm sitting up and I see she's got the thing and the gel. And then she comes over and she says, may I touch your leg? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And she goes, okay, now may I touch your thigh? Now she's between my legs. And I'm like, well, yeah. And then she goes, may I now gently touch your vulva? And I realize what is happening. She is asking for my consent. She is asking if it's okay before and no one's ever, at a doctor, no one's ever done that. And she keeps asking, and I keep saying, yes, ask, yes, ask, yes. And then there's a thing and there's a poke and it's not, it hurts, but then it's out and she goes, okay, we got it. And I'm like, what? And she says, yeah, I got the pap smear. You did it. You did perfect. You were great. And I start crying and I'm not a crier. I'm not. And I'm crying. And I'm like, oh my God, I did it. Are you serious? And she's like, of course you did. You did wonderful. You did perfect. And then we do the pelvic and that's fine. And I'm just crying. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe all these years, decades, 20 years. And I did it. And she says, of course you did. And I realized the reason was because she listened to me. She heard me. That never happened. And it's not happening now. And here's where I'm going to get a little bit political because the people, mostly men that are making laws about women's bodies, they are not listening to me or to women. They don't give a shit what I have. They're certainly not going to ask me for permission. But Dr. Shadigian did. She heard me. She listened to me. And she never once asked me to count the dots on the ceiling. Thank you.
Patty Smith, thank you for a brave truth. Thank you for
Thank you.
a brave
Thank you.
truth. absolutely. And yeah, I should not get political, but I will say that that is a political statement that needed to be made. So thank you very much. Truly,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So you're in Michigan. How did you find us? I'm delighted.
Oh.
And what's your storytelling path with all the other things you have going on?
Sure. So I have been in the Ann Arbor Storytellers Guild. I started with doing a Telebration story back in 2014 about getting my bar exam. That was the other story, the bar exam results. And that's how I started. And I've done storytelling and public speaking. I wrote a beer history. I've written a couple history books and a beer history book, and I'm going around doing storytelling or public speaking, and kind of I put together my own shows of storytelling because it's hard to find stages.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of get to the next level. I'm like, I feel like I've done what I can do. I have 2 shows I put together, the Storytellers Guild, and it gets harder and harder. So I just literally Googled national storytellers organizations, and then the NSN came up. So I joined both. And so that's how I ended up here, because I'm kind of hoping to now meet people, make contacts, and kind of get to the next level, whatever that may be. And I will be at the Fringe show in March. It's during my spring break, so I'm gonna either fly or drive out to New York. And hopefully go to the Baseball Hall of Fame somewhere around there. It's like 2 hours away from where the conference is. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Nice, nice. That's great. And I will say that um I I grew up in New York and lived in Connecticut and did not join Nest until I moved to Florida because I worked full time and did storytelling, and I really truly thought I did some weird thing and didn't know that there are other people who did storytelling. So I immediately fired my therapist, and and here we are. So so as a newcomer to Nest, not as a Nest member, I can say that honestly, this is the most dynamic and welcoming storytelling organization. And I think you've made a wonderful choice, and I can't wait to see where all of you are going. And I love that tonight with these new members, we had folktale, literary, and personal stories. It's just such a wonderful mix with our new members, and we are enriched by you being part of our group. I'm wondering if now we could all unmute if there's not a lot of background noise and bring everybody back, because I know everybody wants to thank you. Chris Riedel wants to share a little information about one storytelling opportunity, and then maybe Katie and Jesri, who likes to be called Jez, can give us a little bit more information about Sharing Fire.
And what I'd like to tell you all about, and some people know, every month on the 3rd Sunday of the month meets the Worldwide Virtual Storytelling Guild. It is sponsored by Northeast Storytelling, and we have slots for 5 tellers. And because it's a guild, it's a place to bring material that you're working on. I put out a suggested theme for the month, but it's just a suggestion. If there's something that you're working on and you need some feedback, write to me, and I'll put out a call for tellers. If you'd like to be on that listserv, let me put my email down here. I should have got it.
Somebody has some serious background noise that is impeding hearing. So if you could, okay, it stopped. Never mind. I was gonna have to call the nuns.
So if you're interested in being on the listserv for the guild, if you go to Nest's website, there's a tab there that says Virtual Guild, and there's information there, and the link to the Zoom meeting is on that same page. Thank you, and I hope to see you.
And the Worldwide Virtual Storytelling Guild is a Nest initiative that started with Hope
2018.
Lewis, right? And when?
2018 with me and Hope Lewis.
Okay, and we just recently lost Hope Lewis, who, the dynamic force to be reckoned with in the best way. So Chris and Jim Brule have been carrying it forward. I know there are a couple other people involved, but this is a Nest initiative, and literally it is worldwide. So it's a great place to meet other storytellers, to get some feedback, or just kick back and listen to some storytelling. So that is in the chat. Again, our featured storytellers tonight, if you want to put your contact information or website in the chat, other members may have opportunities or just want to connect with you. And is there anybody else who wants to share something?
Oh, I have something.
Jess, yes.
Okay, so there is another event coming up very, very soon. But before I talk about that, I'd also like to talk about another I want to call it a Nest initiative. Our former president, Shoshana Simpson, has an open mic storytelling Sunday that happens the third Sunday in Westport at the Westport Library. So for those of you in Connecticut who can either take the train or take I-95 or the Merritt down, I hear it's a really good time. We even have someone who comes down religiously from Boston, Massachusetts. So please come and join. And in December, on December 7th, at the New Haven Pride Center is going to be a late but definitely well-deserved celebration. I have had the honor this year of producing it in partnership with the Connecticut Storytelling Center, and it's also a fundraising effort for the New Haven Pride Center and for the Connecticut Storytelling Center as well. So information about that will be public very, very soon. So please come and join us.
Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you, Linda, for putting
Well,
this together and getting us all here and listening to all of this marvelous storytelling. Thank you,
it
Linda
is.
Schuyler Ford.
Oh, you're welcome.
Here,
It
here,
really
yes.
is my pleasure, minus the Eventbrite. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
And I have been the outreach person for the past year and a half. I need to step back for some family and medical things, but I'm hoping to kind of be a free range producer, and just when I have an idea for a show, to have the permission of the board and Katie to just grab some people and put something together. So, if you have ideas, let me know. And I would be terribly remiss if I did not thank wonderful, wonderful, patient, talented Katie Knudsen.
Yes.
She is our executive director and ran tech for us today, which she did with style and grace. Thank you very much, Katie. I don't want to go. I just want to hang out with y'all. So thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'm
This
going
is
Thank you,
wonderful.
Linda.
to
Thank
save
you,
the track.
Katie. Thank you, everyone, for your stories. They were fantastic.
They were wonderful. Thank you. So nice to meet all of you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you,
Fabulous
everyone.
evening.
Okay.
Nice to
Fabulous
meet y'all.
evening. I'm very full. Thank you so much, everybody.
What a wonderful storytelling evening.
Yeah. I don't want to leave either. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, oh, these are my people. Yeah.
right?
Well, you're welcome
Yes.
to stay and chat for a couple minutes if you like.
Well, I just want to say, I am saying, Linda, I have stories about Eventbrite. They could fill a chapter in my autobiography. So my heart goes out to you. Yes.
Thank you.
In the
Thank
annals of storytelling. There's a chapter.
What I realized is as I struggled with it, it's like, Zoom was like new technology, but it's like, I know how to do this on Zoom. So there we went.
There
But
we
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I was
Not a
gonna say,
friend
I
to
was
me.
about to suggest that. I was just so grateful
Yeah.
because it's been, it seems like, the microcosm really reflects the macrocosm. And I've been saying that every day since 2 weeks ago. And for me, that is very true. And I do think it's a reflection. There's just so much.
Yes, but you need to
Yes,
do that faster because that's what it
yeah,
is.
that's what it is.
Amory, who are you?
Yeah, hey everybody.
Hi.
I was very, very late. But I've been on your email list for a long time and I've loved what I was able to hear and I would like to come to future events and probably become a member. Not sure what that requires, but I'll be looking into that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I didn't mean to single you out. It's just I did not recognize your name, and I thought, oh, cool, a new person. Where are you? What are you about? What's the
yeah,
tea?
yeah, you read my mind because I was just going to insert myself and introduce myself and also ask if I noticed that you were recording the sessions. Is that something that you send to members, or how does that work? 'Cause if possible, I'd love to see what I missed.
Good idea.
That's
Katie?
Katie. Yeah.
Well, so this is on your Zoom account, Linda. So you would have
Oh.
to, right, because it's your link, right? So you would have to
Yes.
take that video. You could download it and send it to me, and I could put it on our YouTube channel. Or we could save it in Google Drive or whatever we want to do
Yeah.
with. We would want to get permission from the tellers who are not here right now
Yes.
and the ones who are here,
Yes.
to just say, hey, is that okay if we do that? And if they say, if you could say yes or yes for a limited time or anything like that. But yeah, you
Yeah.
could, if you just search for Dorothy Storytelling on YouTube, you'll find some stuff of ours.
And I'm not
Great.
sure, am I muted or not?
Nope, you're
No,
good.
we hear you.
Awesome. I like the idea of putting it on the Northeast Storytelling YouTube
Mhm.
Okay.
account. That's what I would vote for.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
then just let us know
We-
when it's on there.
So you say yes. We just need to make sure we have everybody's permission.
Mhm.
But Adair says yes. So we'll see, and I'll
Yeah.
email you and we'll let you know, Amory.
Okay,
So
that's
where are
great.
you? Where are you?
I'm north of Boston, about 25 minutes.
Okay.
So
Oh,
not too far from Glens Falls. You can come to our conference in March.
Is that the one sharing the fire, or
Yeah.
in outside of Portsmouth?
So it was
No.
Portsmouth last 2 years, and then this year it's going to be in Glens Falls, New York. And so it'll be north and west for you. It's upstate New York.
Okay.
It's in the Adirondack area.
Got it. Yeah, no, I'm psyched for that. I noticed that was coming up, so I definitely will try to get out to that for sure.
Awesome.
Good. Good
This has
stuff.
been wonderful. I have to go. This has been fabulous. Thank you all so much. Mwah.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you, Adair. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
meeting you.
Same here. Thanks,
Great.
everybody. I'll talk to you.
Bye.
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 Thank you for letting me
Bye.
put you on the spot.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to you soon.
okay.
All right. I think that's a good time to wrap up, or do we have anything else you want to
Yeah.
say?
It's a great
Um,
time to wrap up.
All right. Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Katie.
Good
Thank
night.
Bye.